All right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another Monday morning tech chat show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm purposely moving the mic here just right in front of my face. I've been doing a lot of talking and a lot of live streaming and a lot of podcasting, so I'm going to try and let the proximity of my mic do more of the work for me here. But I am going to turn this up a little because I think I'm coming in kind of quiet. Am I sounding okay? Someone give me a heads up if this is sounding all right on your end. We'll go from there. Boing Bite, ASMR Juan. I apologize for any biology or mouth noise. I have new trays in from Invisalign. So you might hear a bit of a kind of a chewy sound coming because I feel like I've been punched in the face again. But I'm already seeing a great a great feed, a great chat room here. We've got Swiper, we've got Heiki, we've got Mr. Penriquez, we've got Mimranglot, we've got Pata, Aditya Anil. I saw Deluised74 over on Mixer. And Swiper, Swiper no swiping, Otaku. We've got a good crew here. Baseball Super, Mr. Penriquez, Chewy, and Boing Bite. I'm listening to this on my DT990 Pros, and it sounds good. Okay, good job. I mean, if you're gonna grace me with headphones that high quality, I am going to try and give you guys a good audio feed. So I think that'll be good. All right, so let me get this out of the way here and get this down to here. So we've got an interesting show today. I'm still trying to cover some news. We've got topics that we want to talk about. We live in very interesting and strange times. I did not get any sleep last night. Just some switch flipped in my brain, and a moment of words are failing me now. Insomnia hit me pretty hard. So we've got news, we've got housekeeping, but what I really wanted to dedicate some time to the end of this podcast. I know we've got some really savvy folks in this live chat. I know we've got, the kind of people who would listen to a show like mine or who would watch a show like mine are probably the tech thought leaders in their circles of family and friends. And I've got a couple links here that I think are going to be interesting and fun to share. I'm sure you've got some content that you've been digging into, some resources that you could share. And especially as we're all going through some of these life changes because of the situation, now more than ever, we can kind of help lead our family and friends to finding some cool stuff, maybe saving some cash. And whether or not this is going to become like a series of blog posts or some kind of chain list of free things to do on the internet, every week I'd just like to dedicate a little time towards a couple choice examples of things that might help save you a little money, but also help you pass some time. Like maybe you are getting a little burnt out on rewatching The Office, and maybe you're looking to tighten your belt on some streaming services, your family finances, stuff like that. That doesn't mean that we are completely devoid of fun things to do. So, a Baseball Super, straight up saying it. I am the tech thought leader. And Chris2904, did you see Danny Wingett's V60 versus S20 camera comparison? I'm going to owe a little bit of time in the second half of this podcast. The whole second half of this podcast is going to be sharing some more thoughts on the LG V60. If you have any questions, we can definitely dig in because I feel like I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with what LG is offering here. And then talking about some fun freebies and some fun things to share. Pata, I just got my family to join Discord last night. That is a great recommendation. We're looking at doing like a movie watch-alongs. So we want to do a movie night with my family, and then there's also a group of friends out here. We've agreed on our first movie to watch together, because we're not really streaming it together. We're going to watch it together, is going to be The Cutting Edge. So it's my absolute favorite rom-com, and totally lighthearted and just something to kind of take our minds off of what's going on. And we're going to all be in the same chat room together, completely eviscerating that movie MST3K style. Seeing Mr. M-Dub, Matt Tyler joining the live chat. Excellent. Aditya Nils is going to be on Netflix Party, and we actually haven't made up our minds yet. It might be Netflix Party, but because we have a couple different friends who are of varying degrees of tech savviness, we might be going Discord. Again, an amazing resource to be able to set up real-time chat communications, kind of filling in the gaps, the things that we'd always turned to Skype for in the past, but a little bit smoother and I think a bit easier to run. Once you send out a link and you join a Discord server, it sounds really techy and complicated and, ooh, I'm joining a Discord server, I'm hosting a Discord server, but really it's pretty cake. Like once we get over that hump of the terminology, most people are pretty game to jump in. Pata, a remote riff tracks could totally be a thing, definitely. And Boing Byte, it has proven to be a better resource for this type of group communication than Skype has been. And Aditya, streaming a movie on Discord, I need to learn that. I want to hang out with my buddies and a Harry Potter watch along. Yeah, that might not be a bad idea either. Like, hey, how deep into this situation have we become? Maybe we need to stream, like do a Harry Potter movie marathon. So I don't know. Maybe that could be a thing. And Steve Q3 Becker joining the live chat. Q3 Becker, thanks for jumping in. Also doing some Twitch streaming and again, fun conversations, fun tech. And why don't we? I'm going to be really shaky today, and I apologize. And I'm almost positive we're going to be hearing leaf blowers here in just a bit. So as if I wasn't scattered enough, that's going to totally kick my butt in keeping me on focused and on task here for this conversation. So let me get this out of the way here. Let's jump into a little housekeeping first, while I still have my wits about me. For those of us that are producing content, I'm still trying to put out regular reviews. I'm still trying to do some of my look backs, my longer term coverage. And I'm hoping to start filling in a few more tips and tricks videos. Punchy, short form. Hey, if you wanted to try and do this, this is how you do it. And we're going to be moving that back and forth between my own channel. I'm working with the ninjas over at Newegg so that we can also supplement some of the content that Newegg Studios is. We're trying to minimize the amount of traffic through Newegg Studios, but we're still looking to try and create engaging content. And then there are also some resources that we have that we might be able to share with other people as we change up some of the things that we use our technology for. I feel like this last week has been a into the frying pan test of what we can do to set up my wife with a home office and a workspace to make sure Lex has not only entertainment but good educational resources. And as we're going through this, and I have more resources than the average bear to play with, I feel like sharing more of those experiences is going to be critical over the next couple of weeks. So let me get this out of the way here. And let's jump into some screen share, and hopefully this doesn't abort my whole stream. Hey, it worked. From doing all of these different live streams, I have changed my setup so aggressively over the last couple days. I have no idea what's going to work and what's going to completely fail on us here. So starting off, content from last week, I'm actually going to scroll down to where we were after the podcast. So after last week's show, I took the wraps off of a build video. So I've always intended to diversify the content on this channel. And PC building was always something I wanted to tackle more on the SomeGadgetGuy channel. So the folks at Intel hooked me up with a little baby NUC NUC is their project computer. It's these little small form factor PCs, and they sent over their big boy NUC, the Ghost Canyon, which is a ridiculously powerful small form factor PC. So I showed my experiences in putting together a Ghost Canyon. So Intel pre-builds in your chipset and integrated graphics, and then you supply RAM and a graphics card and storage, and you kind of put it all together. This is a tiny case to work in considering the guts. And I really want to do a showdown between this and some of the other small form factor builds, but I just really wanted to share my experiences putting it together first, because this was a bit more challenging build than some of the other NUCs that I've played with in the past. Then I also wrote up an editorial. As we're all, because of the situation we find ourselves in, we're probably not going to stores as often, but an Amazon 4-star opened up. And so I took a little field trip to go and check out an Amazon 4-star a little bit more than a week ago, before the strictest restrictions came into play for stay at home. And it was just sort of an interesting experience, as Amazon has kind of dominated online retail. They're now building a lot of brick and mortar physical locations, especially in our neck of the woods. I just had some thoughts to share on my first experience walking into Amazon's version of a retail shop. Then last week, I think for those of us who are super into phones, last week we had quite a bit to cover on the LG V60. And so I don't like putting out I don't like putting out unboxing videos and first impressions after just setting the phone up kinds of videos. I like spending a little bit more time and actually digging into real review stuff. But because of everything we're going through right now, TK and I had some time together so that we could sit down and do a co-stream, and this was literally our thoughts after using the LG V60 for maybe a quarter of a day. So literally, if you want our first impressions on the LG V60, the freshest look at a huge monster kaiju phone, this is as raw and as real as you can get with something like that. And then lastly, just to kind of wrap up my own personal channel videos, with everything that's going on with dual screens, I wanted to take a look back at an experiment that is an idea I've been talking about for years. And this one I'm going to talk about here for just a second. So the ZTE Nubia Z20 came out middle of 2019, maybe end of first quarter, second quarter of 2019. It's not a new phone. This is an older device, but I finally got my hands on one, and I really felt like I needed to talk about it because I've been pitching this as an idea for years now. Ever since we've been putting glass on the backs of our phones, I've been an advocate for putting a small screen on the back of our phones so that we can use the main cameras as our selfie cameras. Now, I pitched this idea on the Board at Work podcast, and now I can share real thoughts using the Nubia Z20 in-house, but I still have to reiterate this point from the video, where every time I talk about dual screen, tech enthusiasts, people who should know better, come tripping out of the woodwork to tell me how, well, this idea is not really good because, and then they list reasons that actually make this idea a better fit. Well, I think it would just be better if we made phones with like flip around cameras. No one's going to buy a flip around camera today. I know Oppo had that crazy awesome like pivoting camera module so that it could flip around from the back to the front. The amount of engineering and forehead bezel that you need to keep at the top of a phone, it's not going to happen. We seem to be more impressed with this all front screen design. So engineering a complicated hinge, that's not going to work. Next solution would be something like, oh, well, what about the flip-up camera from ASUS? And that, I think, is a really solid solution, but that comes with other engineering, R&D costs, and durability concerns. if you drop it, it's a moving part. So is there damage that might happen to that swiveling mechanism? And how much would it cost to build a flip up camera and make it water resistant? Because the Nubia Z20 isn't rated IP in any way that I can find. But if we were to refine a dual display version of this idea, it would be way easier, IMO, to build something like that more durably, so that you don't have to worry as much about water resistance or getting moisture into a hinge mechanism or a periscope, a pop-up selfie camera. And then other people brought up other things too, like, well, what about an under-display camera? And you're like, that's fine, but that's still a compromised camera sensor versus what we have on the back of the phone. And so I've kind of taken to a more aggressive policing of my comments on YouTube, where I'm totally down for debate. I love chewing into critical comments, debate, but that means you've actually watched my video and you're replying to things that I've said in the video. I've completely taken to nuking comments that are just like, well, that's dumb. You know, like if your only instinct was to read the title of the video and then leave the phone's old, then you're gone. I'm muting you. You have provided nothing of substance. You have wasted everyone's time, and everyone would be dumber for having read your comment. So evaporated. But again, I want to have those real good meaty conversations with people who are interested in design and looking at different form factors and can loosely imagine that other people might have different concerns and needs and wants than what they personally use. So if your comment is like, I'm not bothered by the notch, then you're gone. I'm not playing anymore. I want my comments to have some substance, and I want good conversations, and I want it to be interesting when you scroll under my videos to look at what people have to say. If your only contribution to that conversation is, I don't care about other people, I use my phone my way and everyone else is wrong, then you won't exist. You will be invisible on my channel. So, that being said, and Steve, Q3 Becker, is not bothered by the notch. So everyone digitally, by practicing your social distancing, I want you to metaphorically punch Steve in the gonads. All right, so we also had some other fun streams. I did a hosted stream to test some of our new content delivery for Newegg. So on my channel, you can see a unboxing the MSI GF65 Thin gaming notebook, and we talked a lot about a really killer GTX 2070 GPU deal that Newegg had up. And then I also did, I don't have the link up. I'll share the link in the show notes. Everything that we're going to be talking about today, I'm going to have links for, and I'll make sure that on SomeGadgetGuy.com, all of the links are here. But I also did a Saturday stream with TK. So TK did a first day, first impressions on the LG V60. And then over on TK's channel, we did sort of a loose, 30 hours with the LG V60. And again, TK's my buddy, TK's my boy, TK my bae, and we had a fun conversation on his channel too, just sharing a few more thoughts after the initial glow of just putting in our Google account had been set up. So lots of content, and I'm trying to keep this entertaining, and I'm trying to go broad. A lot of topics that I think are going to be valuable, a lot of topics that I think are, are the eating your vegetables of putting together tech videos and tech commentary on YouTube, but then also looking for other resources where we can just hang, or we can just chill, or we can kind of distract ourselves a little bit from what's going on. DTNL, hashtag TK Our Bay. I knew Matt Tyler would fire up with that too, but I was on his stream and he was on my stream, so I'm pretty sure it's TK My Bay. Let's Let's see. And Aditya, I want more such phones such as the Nubia to exist for them to get iterated upon and be accepted as part of the normal phone lineups. But given the lack of mainstream media and big YouTuber reviews, how do we contribute to that? And unfortunately, I'm in a place right now. There's an article that I bounced from the show notes just talking about how, smartphone shipments and smartphone sales are down. I would have to imagine that tech and consumer electronic sales are going to be down for a while. And I had this conversation with a friend of mine who was really angsty about being a part of the Apple ecosystem. And I really feel, we've talked about this on the podcast before, a notion of tech empathy, consumer empathy. And I feel like that's something that's been a bit lacking in our conversations about consumer electronics. In our quest for better metrics and analytics and SEO popular topics, there's also come with it something of a shaming of people who made the wrong decision in buying certain products or in doing business with certain companies. And so I'm an advocate for vote with your wallet, but an individual making one purchase, I don't believe that's really the spark. I don't believe that's really the catalyst that creates this kind of change or broadening of horizons. I feel it comes from collective behavior. So maybe you're concerned about how Apple does business or Apple's stance on right to repair or any of these individual more granular political issues. That doesn't necessarily mean you dump your iPhone because you're going to show Apple and you're one person. It means maybe having a broader conversation with your family and friends on how to get more life out of your Apple purchases, on diversifying from what services you use on your Apple hardware. And from there, sort of spreading out and sort of inceptioning those good ideas for ways that we can affect change in the market. Unfortunately, for something like the Nubia, I fear like that idea has passed. That now it's in an age of folding phones and dual screen phones, having a static dual screen. That means two screens on one phone, but they don't flip or there's no hinge. It's not flashy. It feels kind of pedestrian compared to like a Z Flip, even though I think it's more practical. Unfortunately, I feel like that idea might have passed. The consumer attachment to an idea like that might not be enough to build momentum for that type of gadget. But it means that we still have to host more well-rounded conversations, more broader conversations, and we need to approach those conversations by imagining what someone else's concerns might be for using a piece of electronics. Again, I mean, I said it with a little venom there, but I do mean it. If the only contribution you can muster to a tech conversation is, but I don't use my gadgets that way, as if there's a right way or a wrong way to contribute to a discussion about electronics, then you're not contributing anything. You're basically just a gatekeeping bully. And I don't feel your opinion needs to have a place on any of my videos or my podcasts or, my blog posts. I have no qualms nuking that kind of discussion from my channels. And especially, I know I'm preaching to the choir here because this community, especially the people in my live chat now, have been consistently some of the most amazing contributors to these types of discussions, especially when you folks disagree with me on something. But that's also the kind of energy I want to put out for the rest of my videos, the rest of my channel. And I hope something that you'll contribute to also when you see it on Twitter. Now's not the right time to be a gatekeeping tech bully. Now's the right time to make sure your family and friends can maximize every purchase. Now's the right time to make sure, the people closest to you are taken care of. And now's the right time to really be listening, to really listen when someone has a need or has a concern, because you have this superpower. If you're a fan of this stuff, you have the ability to pick the exact right fit gadget for them and not be like some of the biggest YouTubers and tech reviewers lazily sort of recommending the most popular options. You know the lay of the land, and you know what that person really needs. Do you know how valuable that resource is in the age that we find ourselves in right now? We have this opportunity to rise to the occasion, and I know that the people watching me right now consistently do. But we can also spread that philosophy, and we can be the tip of the spear and encourage this type of commentary from other people around us. Sorry, I know I kind of went off a little bit there. But I mean, and again, I'm reading through these comments, and people are already like, there are people having conversations about repairing gadgets. There are people talking about different types of gadgets. Matt Tyler sharing his experiences with, inexpensive laptops. Like, again, I know you guys, you folks here in my live chat, you're already on the pulse. So let me stop barking at you, because I know you're all mostly agreeing with me, but that's also one of the things, especially for people who follow my channel, I wanted to kind of explain. If you kind of notice a slightly more draconian comment policy on my YouTube, it's because I'm fed up. I'm mad as heck, and I'm not going to take it anymore. And the Nubia was an odd sticking point. I have been recommending this idea of a tiny little display on the back of our phones since around the Note 5. If you're going to put glass on the back of my phone, you might as well make it useful for something. And since then, I've encountered so many people who refuse to acknowledge that this is an idea that could be explored, or that it's way too complicated for average consumers. And like, you know what? I don't think that lowly of average consumers. I'm thinking of people who might care to capture higher quality memories. Maybe the selfie camera is the camera someone uses the most on their phones. So why are we forcing them to use a garbage camera on a notch on the front of their phone when they could be using the much better camera on the back of their phone, let alone the wide angle shooter that many of our phones come with now? Imagine your vacation photos when you can see a huge amount of the background behind you. But no, what we really need to do is develop a more expensive screen technology so that we can hide a camera under the display, because we can't have bezels. Because tech reviewers just clutch their pearls, and won't someone please think of the average consumers? Oh, those hideous bezels. There's a millimeter of dead plastic at the top of my screen. Oh, the vapors. So, I digress. Let's get on to some news. I want to kick this off. Right to repair is a very common topic on this podcast. There are philosophical issues with equity, with intellectual property protection, but we find ourselves in extraordinary times. Hold on. Just to backtrack real quick, a few people asked on social media 2 weeks ago, I mentioned the situation's problem by name, and my video on YouTube was demonetized. Last week, I was childishly obnoxious about calling it the situation, wink, wink. But because I never actually named what the situation was, that video was not demonetized. So unfortunately, YouTube is preventing us from having a grown-up conversation about everything that's going on around us, and we have to play these ridiculous games to appease software algorithms just so that this content isn't demonetized, that this, this ad revenue economy we've built, that anyone would be afraid of us having these conversations, or that advertisers wouldn't want their brand linked with what we're talking about, as if we'd be, like, I'm pro situation. So unfortunately, you're going to be hearing me roughly mimic what we did last week in an effort to protect my YouTube channel and not get, again, it's not just one video, me not making money from one video. It's the more times your channel is hit with those types of algorithm-based nanny disputes. It impacts your recommendations. It impacts your search. YouTube basically kind of delists you if you're deemed unpopular for too long. So this is really the protection of every other video that I'm trying to produce. If the podcast takes too many hits, it's really bad for the health of the whole channel. So the situation. Getting back to the news topics, I've got a pair of stories here that I think are just really interesting, and someone is trying to call, and that's not okay. I've got a pair of stories here that feed into the philosophy of right to repair. We as a society need to find those ways that we can balance protecting the value of someone's labor or someone's content or someone's invention against the social concerns where that material or that invention might be beneficial. As we're dealing with this situation, medical equipment is in increasing demand for a number of reasons. Just normal health cycles, given what happens in winter, and the biggie that we're all facing right now. When that equipment is facing higher demand, it's going to get worn out faster. I mean, this is I'm spelling out something here. Trust me, I'm kind of getting to a point. But this isn't like this isn't like Apple protecting how a battery might be replaced and you have to take it to a Genius bar because it's really hard to crack open an iPhone. We're talking about people's lives. So this is coming from USPIRG. Here, let me pull up screen share here. Advocates say to remove barriers to fixing ventilators and other medical equipment. This is a press release written up March 18th. Coming out of Washington, the U.S. healthcare system lacks an adequate number of working ventilators to effectively treat the influx of novel patients. But it's not just a dearth of ventilators and other critical medical equipment. We need to make sure we can properly maintain devices, and medical equipment manufacturers have placed obstacles in the way of that. Many manufacturers do not provide access to repair documentation, limiting who can repair the equipment, and that discourages third-party medical repair companies or in-house medical engineers from trying to fix things. This is a really delicate conversation. Ultimately, I do believe leaning on the side of right to repair will ease more suffering than the potential harm it might cause. But the companies who manufacture this gear have also had to manufacture this gear, any type of durable medical equipment, to standards which meet certain criteria for protecting the public. So even down to things like repair contracts, because this isn't like, oh, just swapping the battery on an iPhone, why can't I get a schematic for the capacitors on a MacBook? They've been held to a much higher standard, and those standards and the certifications become more expensive. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be examining how do we license these materials? How do we certify repair technicians? How do we get people into the workforce so that they can be entrusted with protecting the public good? And there's also, I mean, again, I don't want to make light of this situation, but there's also an opportunity for someone to come in with market disrupting tactics, and this could be a financial benefit to certain companies looking at shaking up their relationship between manufacturing, distribution, and the end users, the hospitals using this gear. It's very complicated. I don't want to make this sound like some of my previous rants about, why can't I just crack open a Surface laptop and fix it the way I want? Or why'd you have to solder an SSD into the logic board? It's not as simple as that. But this is the beginning of a conversation where right to repair reforms could benefit our understanding of how this market functions and how these business deals take place and how these deals are brokered, which could then lead us to better outcomes, more flexibility, or at least just a more nimble response when these systems start getting taxed. So that's what I'm hoping will come from that. Immediately, when we start looking at some of the support and accessories for this equipment, I'm not surprised that we're seeing people on the ground act very aggressively at trying to provide solutions. When ventilators are getting maxed out in hospitals, the parts and pieces that might start wearing out on those ventilators need to be replaced. If there is not a good distribution system to get that done, it is kind of exciting to see how people come up with those solutions on their own. So this is an article written up by Fast Company. And I need to point this article out for... I need to point this out for a couple reasons, because this story originally launched with a very tactical slant, which I don't think helps the cause. But this is the article from Fast Company written up by Kristen Toussaint. These good Samaritans with a 3D printer are saving lives by making new respirator valves for free. As more and more patients are hospitalized, resources at health facilities are being strained. That's why flattening the curve is so important. So that there's not a sudden influx of patients and then a shortage of beds or vital equipment. In Italy, which moved too late to limit exposure, this has already happened. Hospitals in the north of the country are overwhelmed and running out of space and equipment, causing the death toll to spike. But when one Italian hospital ran out of valves for crucial respiratory machines, local manufacturers stepped in to 3D print replacements. So they took some scans and some images and reverse engineered how these valves are manufactured, and then they started custom 3D printing these valves on their own to help supply the need for these valves on these respirators. So that's just amazing. Again, we see this community step up and we find some novel solutions in a time of need. But the reason why I wanted to bring this story up and why these types of topics are so much more complicated than just, oh, right to repair good, manufacturer's bad. When this story first launched, I caught it first on Reddit. The article on Reddit, and this got picked up by a couple of other major outlets. In fact, I think I even saw on like Engadget and The Verge sort of replicating this news story with some misinformation in it. And the sensationalized headline was, these guys are facing litigation from the respiratory manufacturer because these valves cost $11,000 a pop, and they're gonna Robin Hood it. They're gonna give these valves out for pennies on the dollar, kind of a thing. It took a couple days, but none of that information was accurate. The people who were doing the 3D printing reached out to the medical manufacturers and got no reply. They did not completely rip off the valve design. They reversed engineered it, and they have come up with a viable, comparable solution to the valves from this medical company. These valves don't cost $11,000 a pop. And there's been no word that I've been able to find over the last 2 days that there was any threat of direct legal action against the people doing this 3D printing. The story is already complicated enough when we talk about distribution, dwindling supplies, getting equipment to the people who need it the most, how to quickly, distribute this kind of stuff, that we don't need to add more drama on top of a story like that. We're not helping the situation by making more outrage porn when a lot of us are already pretty keyed up about what's going on in the world. This is an amazing story on its own. These people took it on themselves to engineer a solution in a part of the world that desperately needed some help and weren't able to get access to these resources. That's the story. The story is not the outrage porn. The story is people coming together to solve a problem. And we do ourselves a disservice when we continue to perpetuate misinformation and clickbait so that some blog out there can get better ad traffic. The outrage porn hurts our community, and we lose sight of the story that really mattered. And the story that really mattered was people who have resources, people who have engineering talents, people who have software and coding talents, people who have access to hardware like 3D printers, making a difference. When Mr. Rogers says, if scary things are happening out in the world, look for the helpers. We need to look for the helpers, because these people deserve a pat on the back. And I'd even be willing to say, so long as the medical supply company decides not to engage in direct legal action over this move, they deserve a kudos for not engaging in direct legal action over this move. So, more than ever, I'm very often a sort of a wait and see kind of a guy. Something bad happened. Let's see how this pans out. And I try to stay fairly conservative in my reactions. I've been known to get kind of lit up about things, especially as it pertains to net neutrality or broadband distribution, or what I perceive as people punching down, inequity in a given system. I was ready to get lit up when I saw that initial Reddit headline, and then I couldn't find a good article on it. And then a couple days went by, and I'm checking in. I'm ready to be outraged at the behavior of this medical goods company, and then it never really comes. And then a couple articles start issuing a few retractions or corrections. Oh, we had to update this story because a good chunk of what we reported on was completely inaccurate. And it was just a good, healthy reminder for me. I need to take a breath too. I should not be so ready to be outraged on someone else's behalf until I get a bit more information as to what's actually going on with that situation. Not fun. Super not fun. Let me. So I saw a few from Sam, 34 kilos. I saw a couple who was making 3D printed face shields. That's kind of cool too. From Andy, I'm guessing those are injection molded, which would be prime for being 3D printed. Good on them for doing the work. And also from Andy, the litigation angle was the first I heard of that story, unfortunately. Otaku, ugh. Clickbait news websites are the worst kind of trash to get passed off as news. Oh, Tech Levin Mama's in the chat. Everyone say, hey, Tech Levin Mama. Gary the Fireman, leaf blowers are also a trigger. I will get lit up about leaf blowers. I will not apologize for how much I hate leaf blowers. We just got another 2 days of rain. There are no leaves to blow. I'm almost positive they're going to kick on at some point. LFA Reviews is in the live chat. Everyone say, hey, Jeff. And if you're not following his channel, you hate your ears. Boing by angry keyboard noises. Oh, and Dave Burns too. 400,000 concurrent users on Folding at Home. Oh, that's exciting to see. Folding at Home is a way that you can turn your computer into a node for distributed projects. So scientific research, analyzing cell structure, the behavior of viruses. If you're not using your computer and you can spare the electricity, you can use Folding at Home to help scientists finish their research. And we've been seeing quite a bit of activity from Folding at Home for analyzing the situation and how we might be able to break some of that stuff down for cures and vaccines. Boing Byte, I've been getting issues with getting work units for Folding at Home. Root Night 5. Folding at Home computing power surpassed the world's top 7 supercomputers. Again, that's the story, man. That's like we can have hope for the future of humanity, and it's something so small, but someone, walked away from their computer and fired up Folding at Home and let it run for a couple hours. everyone came together to improve the situation. You know, like people rose to the occasion on trying to help. Boing bite, gamers rise up, but for real and not just in obnoxious Reddit memes. Oh, and from Dave Burns too, I went around and found all my old GPUs. I've got my 970 and I've got a couple NUCs here too. They won't contribute a lot, but I could probably turn on quite a bit. I'm honestly not sure if my circuit breakers could handle it, but I think I could probably fire up a lot. Speaking of traffic and coordinating and networking, this is also going to become a growing concern where our infrastructure and our networks probably haven't been keeping up with the actual population of people who use data connected devices. So I'm very confident that this is a story. It's breaking out of Europe, but this is probably something that we're going to see spread in some way throughout most of the industrialized world. So here, let me go back into screen share. I don't know if that last link went through in the live chat, but this is the link to this story. And this is coming out of CNN Business. Netflix and YouTube are slowing down in Europe to keep the internet from breaking, written up by Hadass Gold. Netflix and YouTube will reduce streaming quality in Europe for at least the next month to prevent the internet collapsing under the strain of unprecedented usage due to the due to the situation. Both companies said the measures will affect all video streams for 30 days. Quote, we estimate that this will reduce Netflix traffic on European networks by around 25%, while also ensuring a good quality service for our members, said a Netflix spokesperson in a statement. So, oh no, I'm seeing a bunch of people saying F. Oh no. Matt Tyler, not enough bandwidth now that everyone is home. Oh no. Simon says, Hypno, I told my kid that Netflix is limiting to 2 episodes per day, and you should have seen their jaws drop. That's a little in-home throttling for you there. And Route 95, now it's a good time to buy physical media, and the stores are closed. So there was another story, and again, I should have kept the link to this one in the show notes for this week, but there were talks about trying to also throttle game streaming services, like going after the servers for consoles and for PC gaming. And it's so funny to think, but streaming video, especially higher quality video, HD and UHD streams, takes up so much more bandwidth than gaming. People see high resolution graphics in a game and that you're playing online, and they start linking those ideas together. And the next more appropriate metaphor is, well, and I stream videos off of Netflix, so gaming must take up a ton of bandwidth. But the games mostly, I mean, again, you've got like Stadia, GeForce Now. Those are more like Netflix style distribution services for gaming, but the game is mostly being created locally. And what's being streamed is a much smaller chunk of telemetry data so that people can play online, that people can compete or collaborate online together. That feed of telemetry data is much, much smaller than a decent HD quality stream hour over hour. It's frustrating because, like, you know, anything like this goes down, any situation like this occurs, and for whatever reason, there's always this sort of like loose tangent target focused on gamers. You know, like, well, gotta shut down game streams. Why? If anything, we should be encouraging more people to get into online gaming to help free up bandwidth as an entertainment form over streaming tons of high quality video. But again, we want to focus on things that are catchy. There's a smaller community of like the hardcore online gamers, so they become an easy target for for this type of punitive strategy. Boing Byte. The only time there's a bandwidth issue is on that 50 gigabyte day one update. And Utaku, this is actually a great tip. This is something that my family, we've been working to do quite a bit. At home, we have something like 40 terabytes of movies, shows, and music on portable storage drives. And Dave Burns, I built a NAS and have slowly converted all of our home media. That is a great suggestion. I have a little QNAP. It's a 3-bay NAS. It's not the biggest, but we've got a ton of movies, TV shows, most of them from DVD and Blu-ray rips. And when we first moved in, the first week we were in this new condo, someone cut a fiber line from Spectrum, and we were without home broadband for 2 days. But because we had all of this content on the NAS, we could still stream it all over our home network. So we could still stream it to a Chromecast. We could still stream it to a TV. I could watch it from a phone or from a tablet. My daughter had most of her favorite movies collected because we've been buying them and we've been opting for physical media. That helps a lot, and it doesn't count against data. It's all local. It streams locally because it's on your network. And also music. My music collection, where I've been going through and trying to replace my favorite albums with high quality FLAC rips. When I listen at home, I don't store that media locally. I stream it off of the NAS, and it's streaming over Wi-Fi, and it's streaming 24-bit FLAC files that don't take up any space on my phone. So if you have the means to plug a hard drive into a router, you might be able to recreate some of that functionality and have storage that everyone on your network can see. And it's totally worth examining, even if you have a crummy modem router from your ISP. It might have a USB port on the back, and you might be able to enable that kind of functionality. From Simon says, Hypno, I wish I'd built a NAS. I replaced MyCloud with MyCloud Home. Completely different functionality. No DLNA. Oh, that blows. I did not have good experiences with Western Digital boxes. I've had great experiences with Western Digital red drives. Those drives have held up tremendously well, but the actual enclosures from Western Digital I have not liked. So I'm on a QNAP now, and it's a little QNAP 3-bay, with the exception of a very creaky, vibraty plastic shell around the enclosure. The actual functionality has been great. In fact, it's probably going to be because of that QNAP that I upgrade to a 10 gig network switch in the near future. So from Sam 34 kilometers, I have like physical media for movies and shows. It's almost criminal. From Black Neko 743, my friend was nice enough to lend me access to his Plex server, and I got all the movies, anime I want on deck. That's another thing too. When you control access to how you distribute that content on your own home network. I mean, I'm not saying we should be engaging in file sharing, but oh, and Dave Burns too. Make MKV is a lifesaver for Blu-rays. So encoding a Blu-ray into an H.265 MKV file has been a revelation. I was doing it just because I'm annoyed at putting in a disc and seeing menus and seeing like warnings and the FBI, and you've got videos that play and sometimes just full-on commercials or advertisements, and then you can watch the movie. And so I started ripping just so that I could back up my own content on my own home network, but still keep all of the chapters and all of the subtitles and all of the audio tracks and audio commentary, it's all still in the MKV file. And then with H.265, the file sizes for really high quality Blu-ray rips got a lot smaller. So yeah, I can't say enough nice things. Make MKV, and my combo is pulling the Blu-ray with Make MKV and then compressing it with Handbrake. So Handbrake's high quality H.265 MKV setting on a decent GPU is shockingly good. I really like that compression. And Otaku, this is the perfect time to replay Skyrim. Weeks of free time and slower internet are perfect conditions. Join me. All in caps. From LFA, I can always snail mail you some of my VHS collection. That's hilarious. We have a box of old VHS like home movies. I don't have a VCR. I need something to play that on. Clearing out the garage from Matt Tyler. Clearing out the garage, I found an original VHS copy of Alien. Oh, that's fun. Oh, LFA has a copy of Over the Top with Sly Stallone. Turn my hat backwards. It's like a switch flips. And then I can be the ultimate arm wrestling machine. So, out of a brief conversation about Netflix, throttle, and connections, and something that we'll probably see worldwide, because again, we're putting a lot of strain on networks that were never designed for all of the subscribers to be hitting that all at once. Some good conversation there, especially in the live chat about how to back up some of your media, how to share some of your media, and how to better manage content when you might not always have access to the best internet stream. One other quick story here, because this is another one that I think is probably going to be affecting more of us over the coming weeks because of the situation. This is coming by way of VentureBeat. Let me drop the comment here. Route 9 from Peta. More Sly Gadget Guy. my Sly Stallone impersonation, not the best. Amazon will limit non-essential orders in France and Italy under situation strain. Because of the situation, placing growing pressure on e-commerce companies like Amazon as people turn to online shopping. In response, Amazon has announced that it will no longer ship what it considers to be non-essential items in France and Italy. Quote, "We will temporarily stop taking orders on some non-essential products on Amazon.it and Amazon.fr. This lets fulfillment center associates focus on receiving and shipping the products customers need most at this time." We've been seeing growing reports on the strain put on Amazon warehouse employees. Jeff Bezos, on his Instagram, posted part of an internal letter to Amazon talking about how he's focused on, all of his focus is being placed on trying to revamp Amazon's business to deal with our current challenges. The concerns here, the immediate concern that I had was people's panicky responses to hearing news like this. That, oh no, if Amazon's not going to be taking orders, maybe I should put in a bunch of bulk orders, get stuff shipped. A few things that I had on my wish list or I had in my shopping cart and I haven't pushed the button on it yet. The reason why we're looking at starting to restrict some of the traffic that goes through Amazon is because of people already using Amazon more. And again, that panicked response, I'm going to try and get mine. There are constrained resources. Now might be the time to take that breath, really look around, see what essential items you really need. But, maybe you don't need new corncob holders, but you've had them in your cart, but you're worried that you might not be able to get them. Now would be the time to push the order. Don't do that. Please don't give in to that instinct. From Matt Tyler, Amazon is limiting UK and USA as well. I know, like, same day and next day shipping has been gone for a while. So yeah, we've been already seeing the effects of that, but we haven't seen, I haven't seen at least, anything that is as direct a response to categorizing or classifying orders as non-essential. I think that's the little difference between what's going on here in the USA versus what's going on in Italy. And Black Neko 743, isn't delivery of non-medical supplies in the US delayed until April 5th? And that's what I mean is they're not saying no. They're not saying, we're going to take an entire month off of shipping non-essential. What they're saying is your non-essential shipments are being delayed. And they're not putting the same resources behind things like next day. And LFA reviews, exactly this. Amazon is a week out on deliveries here in the San Francisco Bay Area. It feels like the early 2000s again. Oh, man. 3 to 5 days shipping? This is the worst. And LFA reviews, I still can't find paper towels. Shaking my head. I'm going to start trading supplies on Facebook. We bought our normal Costco trip about a week before people started panic buying. So we're still doing okay on this side. We're starting to ration a little. Like, I'm trying not to just use paper towels for everything. And we can wash hand towels, cloth hand towels. It's fine. Ooh, Webster RC Ronald, this is a good tip. You can try checking out your local auto parts store for hand cleaner and hand sanitizer and paper towels. I still have, like, what was the orange cleaner, like that really gritty, harsh, abrasive hand cleaner. But yeah, you'd have all kinds of shop towels too. That's a really good tip, man. I hadn't really thought about that. From Sam34, 7-day shipping is such BS. I'm taking my ball and go home. Goop. That's the jam. And Gojo was mine. Lava was good. Lava was good too. But LFO reviews again. This doesn't go for just shop towels. He's saying don't flush shop towels. Don't flush any type of towel or wipe. If you flush that, it's really going to jack up your plumbing. So, keep that stuff in garbage cans and disposed of properly. Okay. I want to take a second here to shout out the subreddit. Every podcast has a subreddit. Now more than ever, while we're all talking about these types of topics, the situation, and we're still trying to lead these entertaining discussions as well, now is more than ever, if there are content creators you enjoy, if there are producers that you like their content, being an active participant is more critical than ever. A passive view for a live stream, I mean, it's that little blip where maybe there's the potential for a bit of ad revenue, but sharing, commenting, subscribing, all of the tools that we have, thumbs up, just giving a video a like, some type of action is greatly appreciated and helps your favorite content creators continue creating content. I mean, if it starts to feel like, people love to watch my stuff, but they're not going to help me share it, or they're not going to talk about it, or they're not going to comment on it, or they're going to leave really dumb comments on my stuff, that's going to be very discouraging, especially with all of the life changes up. I'm guilty of this too. I've got videos that I need to finish editing. I've got podcasts that I want to join on other friends' channels. And it's a little hard to shake that funk, get up, put on a clean shirt, and go do it. It's like, it's not like I'm depressed, but it's a little like there's kind of a depressive energy, and it's just a higher energy requirement than it used to be a couple weeks ago to do the same thing. And I'm trying, like I'm really trying to keep my eye on the prize. There are so many content creators out there that need your support. And so I've put together a subreddit. My subreddit is not really about me or my podcast. It's one resource that we can use to help try and give other content creators a little bit more visibility, give them a platform to share, to get some SEO on Reddit, and for us to talk about content that we think deserves more attention. So I just want to talk about some of the top stories on reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. And let me go back into screen share here. Three-legged couch. Wow, it's been a while since I joined the SGGQA. Good to see JCB on screen again. Good to see you in my live chat. I appreciate it. And Tech Lovin' Mama, I have DIY essential oil hand sanitizer making here, helping people around me as best I can who need it. Oh, that's awesome. Again, it's also kind of fun seeing people disrupt some of the retail, like, hey, you need magic sponges? There's a cheap way to make that. Hey, you need hand sanitizer? You can make it. Okay, so let me go back into screen share here. Top stories on glowing rectangles. Former employee got access to a GameStop regional conference call regarding the situation, and this was the result. So this was one of the higher drama stories that was we were talking about over this last week, was GameStop considering themselves essential services while a number of cities were trying to shut down non-essential services. I'm an advocate for gaming during this situation. I do not believe that GameStop is an essential service. But this video coming by way, the top story of the last week on our glowing rectangles, coming from Camelot331 with 100,000 subscribers, talking about sharing his thoughts on this leaked conference call. And through that kind of chatter, we did see city governments mostly. I don't know that any state government has taken action, but city government saying, GameStop, you got to shut down. We don't care what you are classifying yourself as. The city has deemed you non-essential. And so I feel like that's reasonable given everything that we've been talking about and given everything that one state did. Dave Burns is saying that Pennsylvania revoked their business license. And so Dave Burns is saying our state stores have closed down. I hadn't seen that from Pennsylvania, but I had heard that cities were looking at very similar policy. There were other solutions, like, how GameStop could have pivoted, focused on online sales, maybe more like curbside pickup for different devices. I feel like their initial response to this situation was very, very clumsy. And I was also a little frustrated. People are like, Reggie, you got to get in and fix that. For folks who don't know, a very prominent figure from Nintendo, who was sort of like the face of revitalizing Nintendo over these last several years, from the Wii through to the Switch, is he on the board at GameStop? Is that, someone correct me, I think I might have that wrong. But it was like he just got on the board at GameStop and everyone was acting like, why hasn't Reggie fixed this already? He's been on the board for like tens of hours. Root Knight 5. Declaring yourself an essential service is one hell of a power move. It really was. Back into the subreddit, the number 2 video, the number 2 story on Reddit glowing rectangles is some dork with a punchable face and some doofy hat talking about a phone that came out last year. Oh, I like having 2 screens on a phone, said punchable face guy. And that made the number 2 spot. See, I didn't take all 3 this week. I had a really strong week last week. It's not common that I am leading the charts on my own subreddit. I'm very earnest in my mission here with glowing rectangles to promote other content creators and not just make it a me subreddit. Boing bite, hashtag some doofy hat guy. Yeah, I hate that guy's face. But immediately after, a content creator I don't feel really does get all of the attention and the respect that he deserves. Flossy Carter, 1.4 million subscribers. If you look at his channel metrics, I think his videos definitely deserve to get more traffic. He is held to a consistency of approach, a consistency of analysis. I don't always agree with him, but I've never felt like Floss has ever like manipulated his opinion based on like YouTube metrics. He gets a device, he uses it, he puts his thoughts out, and he really doesn't seem to care if those thoughts coincide with more popular views and better traffic on YouTube. So he's got the LG V60, like a number of us have been playing with the LG V60. And I really don't think you will find a more consistent and honest analysis of a phone than Flossy Carter. Whether or not I agree with every point he brings up, no. But again, I feel he approaches that discussion the same with pretty much any gadget that he gets his hands on. So Floss coming in number 3 on glowing rectangles. And just scooching through the rest of this, we've got PBK reviews, taking a look at the V. Oh, let me go back into screen share, sorry. Rounding out the top 10, we've got PBK reviews, checking out the V60. The number 5 spot, LFA reviews, looking at the MPOW M30 versus the MPOW T5. So some good budget true wireless earbuds. We've got Fandroid doing an unboxing for the V60. We've got the Red Magic 5 gaming smartphone, an article from Ars Technica, getting a little traction right there. We've got TK Bay's unboxing and setup for the LG V60. And we've got from Jabbertech, my last pair of true wireless earbuds, and he's got a hands-on with the Jaybird Vista true wireless Bluetooth earbuds. We've got a broad collection of content creators. We've got content, international content. We've got different points of view. And this is proven to be a great resource for me. I regularly find content creators I'd never seen before. I promise you, if you have not been to reddit.com/r/glowingrectangles, you will likely find someone you've never seen before, and there'll be someone you'll want to subscribe to. So that's the mission. Can we help these content creators? Can we help these producers? Can we help give more visibility to the people that we enjoy watching and listening to? We need to be proactive, and we need to be, well, just simply active members of this community in sharing and supporting. And again, I know I'm preaching to the choir for folks watching my podcast, but spreading that word and encouraging that behavior and being the change we want to see in the world. So that to me is an incredibly critical mission given everything that we're going through. LFA reviews, I made the cut. Jeff, you regularly make the cut. You regularly do better on my subreddit than I do. From Root Night 5, Floss is probably the only person I can think of that mentioned headphone jacks and not only about headphones. Three-legged couch. When Flossy yells at me in his videos, I follow his recommendations. From Simon says, Hypno, I saw one video headline on LG V60. I have concerns. That's actually a series from that producer. I think that's Josh Vergara. So I think he started making his first impressions videos kind of a critical examination of that very initial reaction just to see if there's anything that he has concerns about. I don't believe that was unique to the V60. I think he's done that for a few of his early look videos. Hey, and Def Burns too. My girlfriend's family uses LFA for headphone purchases. Boom! That is the right resource. Excellent. And Heiki kind of backing me up there. Josh Vergara, but I don't think the video was that negative for what the title inclined. It's crummy. We have to play really obnoxious games as YouTubers. My channel would be doing a lot better if I did clickbaity nonsense on my content. I just don't have the stomach for it. I put out that article a couple weeks back talking about how Apple can tell movie producers what they can and can't do with Apple products in movies. And when I shared it on Twitter, I just put the headline out on Twitter, and like I got a couple views. And then I made a joke about what a clickbait title for that article would look like, and the traffic to that article jumped fivefold. I literally wrote in the tweet, "Oh, I was bummed that more people weren't reading this article. Maybe I should have used a headline like this. What Rian Johnson does next will blow your mind." Fivefold increase in my traffic. So I think what Josh is doing is kind of leaning into the drama dance. You know, there's this YouTube drama thing that happens. Like, oh, Apple did this one thing on the next iPhone and they're going to lose me as a customer. Now that I have the new iPhone, through pure meritocracy, I've totally been won over and I can't wait to use more Apple products. But I read a rumor on the next Apple product that has me very concerned. But now that I have this Apple product, I'm absolutely in love with it. It's super obvious in this day and age. But what I think Josh is trying to do is just kind of push the drama of the title, but I don't think it's overly changed his approach to reviewing the actual product. So I like Josh. I'm willing to give him a pass on that. From Root Knight 5, if clickbait titles can promote valuable content, I can stomach that. It's just I'm so exhausted by trying to play the clickbait game. Okay, we're in the gadget block. One more time, reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. Please support your favorite content creators in any way you can. Excuse me, I got to take another drink of water here. Quick blip of a story. XDA has a great first look at Huawei's attempt at trying to make app installing a little bit easier. I would highly recommend checking this out because I think this could also be some competition for... Oh no, my chat just logged me out for some reason. Give me 1 second. Just lost everyone in the live chat. I don't even know if that's... Hold on, I've got to get a login. Oh no, the whole podcast comes screeching to a halt. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? Hold on, I'm going to do this here real quick. I'm going to pull up my chat just in a browser. Chat fail. All right, we should be back. We should be back. Sorry about that. And Sam34 kilometers saying I started my Sunday stuff and things because of Juan. Sam34, he did a great. It was a very entertaining live stream with Sam and Matt Tyler. So hopefully I tried to share it on Twitter. I think I was a little late for when you guys started. But that was a great live stream. I had a lot of fun with you guys listening to that stream. All right, I don't know if my last link went through. So here, let me copy this one more time. This is from XDA developers. Get that in there. And screen share this. Huawei tests app search to help users download popular apps without using the Google Play Store. Because the U.S. Commerce Department placed Huawei on the entity list last year, Huawei cannot sign new mobile application distribution agreements with Google, which prevents Huawei from distributing new mobile devices with Google mobile services. This means that all new Huawei smartphones and tablets, at least the ones that aren't rebranded models of existing already certified devices, can't ship with Google apps on board. It also makes it a little bit more difficult to find what you're searching for if you're used to using Google Play as your main resource for finding new apps. So to kind of cut to the chase, what app search is doing is acting as a point of it's kind of acting as a point of sale, but it's acting as a main hub for a number of other search for app sideloading resources. So let's say you search for an app. What app search will do is go through Amazon App Store, APK Mirror, APK Monk, APK Pure, the Huawei app gallery, and if there is an official website where an app might be downloaded directly. The Root Night 5, that is a beautiful comparison. It's like a Linux repository. So if you were purchasing a Huawei phone and you no longer have access to Google Play services, one of the ways that they are trying to help people find good software is by combining all of the search for all of these services here. It's an interesting approach. I would highly recommend reading through XDA's article here, written up by Michal Rahman, and I think Max Weinbach contributed. Like, he did some of the screenshots, and there's a video, but apparently the video doesn't play. Huawei is in an interesting place with everything that's going on in providing services and in trying to keep their phone market up and running. I think they were just recently outsold by Xiaomi for the first time in the companies, as the two companies have fought on the smartphone landscape. Xiaomi took the lead in sales. So it makes sense that they'd be trying to pivot and trying to keep customers on popular services in a way that's easy for them to install those services. It's a very interesting place for them to be. The recovery, the scramble, what they're going to do to mitigate some of those concerns over usability. But if they really lay the groundwork for this, if they really invest in the infrastructure for this type of distribution, it's like every day they aren't able to use Google Play services, it's less likely that they'll go back to using Google software when they can. It's really interesting. I like the long-term play from Huawei here is going to be fascinating to see if they can create sort of a side smartphone ecosystem, because something like this likely would be accessible to any device that's running some kind of AOSP style Android kernel. Black Neko 743, I got to use a Mate 30 a few weeks back. Interesting design and nice IR blaster, but the waterfall screen has got to go. The power button is pretty much in a weird place on the back, and you have no volume keys. Simon says, Hypno, I hate waterfall screens. I do not like screens that curve and wrap to the edges. They're harder to hold. They look cool. That's about it, is that they just look really cool. So, great article from XDA. Should definitely check that out. This is another just quick little blip. Again, sort of my advocacy for gamers and keeping good information on what's going on in the world of gaming. Let me drop this link in here and screen share this. Ray tracing comes to more games thanks to new software tools. This is written up by John Fingus over on Engadget. And ray tracing might be coming to Vulkan. So you haven't seen much ray tracing in games, due in part to the limited frameworks for it. Outside of Microsoft's DirectX, creators have usually had to lean on proprietary approaches. Soon, though, it might be relatively ubiquitous. The Kronos Group has released provisional ray tracing extensions for Vulkan, the open graphics standard effectively replacing OpenGL on multiple platforms. You should see sophisticated reflections, fewer light artifacts, and otherwise more natural-looking lighting in titles that support the technology. And then we can hit the Kronos Group. There's a full ray tracing in Vulkan overview with examples. So, Wolfenstein Youngblood ray tracing off, Wolfenstein Youngblood ray tracing on, introduction to Vulkan ray tracing extensions, acceleration structures, host operations. I mean, the paper on this is pretty dense. I am not equipped to fully dig into everything that's going on here, but the initial kernel of what this story is trying to represent and what I caught on Engadget is our games. Oh, LFA reviews is taken off. Breaks over, back to webinars, online training. Jeff, thanks so much for dropping by. Keep your head down, keep your family safe, wash your hands, don't touch your face. And we'll be on the lookout for your content and your videos. Make sure we're all spreading the good word. But yeah, so if we have better frameworks for lighting, for particle effects, for shadow detail, things like that, even our mobile games will stand to get a lot prettier soon. But even for how graphics work is handled, a kind of unified platform for this could be a pretty big deal. I was very impressed with NVIDIA's DLSS on Wolfenstein Youngblood. So I think we're finding a better balance of improving lighting, improving shadow detail and reflections, and then also not nuking a computer. You know, when ray tracing first started, we'd see these beautiful reflections and this amazing lighting, and your frame rate would drop to like 25 frames per second in 1080p on a $1,000 graphics card. Since then, we've gotten a lot better, but ray tracing coming to Vulkan means that this is probably going to start pivoting to the mainstream in a very big way. So I'm very excited to kind of loosely keep my eyes out for that. From Dave Burns too. I'm very excitedly awaiting a 2180 or a 3080 Ti if the price remains reasonable. And Otaku immediately replies, "Would a little under $2,000 be reasonable? Because that's what I expect." And Matt Tyler 5, and this is exactly what we're talking about, the mainstream with advanced lighting and reflections coming to consoles. The PS5 and Xbox Series X, One X will be good with ray tracing. I feel like we're going to see more of these compression tricks, but if more of these developers can utilize these tools, then our mid-ranger solutions, like someone using an RTX 2060, will likely be able to participate with ray tracing in a way where last year you needed $1,000 graphics card just to keep a laughably minimum frame rate. And with Vulkan's ability to operate multi CPU and on GPU hardware, I don't think it would be on the pale to say 2021, as we see next generation chipsets coming out for mobile devices, some kind of limited support for compressed DLSS style ray tracing for tablets and smartphones. This stuff gets crazy exciting once we start balancing some of the workload against some of the visual effects and the output. And I think consoles are going to be a huge drive for that. But when we start seeing this stuff coming to phones, I think it's just going to launch. I mean, we're going to start taking the most beautiful aspects of high resolution gaming for granted at that point. Oh, and Def Burns, I'm using my GPU for video rendering and compression, so I'm buying it for the long haul. You know, it's kind of where I'm with my RTX 2080. It's a little overkill for what I needed when I got it. Should last me a while. And even though I'm mostly using it for video work, sure doesn't suck when I fire up a game. Oh, and Ronald Collins is saying he's doing pretty good with his 2060 playing MechWarrior 5. So some ray tracing there too. Here, I want to... Where are we? 1030? And let's get that out of the way there. I've got two short little stories here. Let me just knock them out. Because of the situation, we've been seeing disruptions to content, like how movies are being shown, and we're seeing a lot of day and date releases for streaming solutions. We're also going to see, I think this is going to be a very valuable resource as some movie distribution houses look to go directly to streaming like Netflix. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense. You've got a big blockbuster. You want to put it up for sale on Google Play first, so you can try and make up some of the losses from ticket sales. But if you can broker a deal with Netflix to be a solo distributor for a new movie, that might be more profitable. So the movie The Lovebirds, a comedy, was set to hit theaters on April 3rd, was pulled from release by Paramount due to growing situation concerns. It's just going to go directly to Netflix. And Paramount also recently pulled the release of A Quiet Place 2 and Blue Story. So I think we're going to see, for all those reasons, I've been working in Hollywood for like a long time. I've been working in Hollywood for a long time. As soon as Netflix started doing like the test market for video streaming, there was this talk about day and date. Putting out a movie the same day it hits theaters, all the reasons why it couldn't happen, and the technology and the streaming, and it's hard, and the money, and won't people think of the money clutching the pearls and the vapors. With the situation kind of throwing a wrench into the normal way that we do business, it's funny that we're now finding these solutions and they're getting easier to implement. And now we seem to care about making sure that there's an infrastructure for this type of media distribution. But I think we're going to see a growing reaction to more nimble distribution. What'll just be kind of interesting to see is whether or not production picks back up. A lot of projects got sidelined during the height of this last week's concern over the situation. So now we need to see, will new content be coming to fulfill people stuck at home streaming and renting movies and TV shows and stuff like that. So we'll have to see how that lands. But for anyone who was interested in checking out The Lovebirds, which I kind of wanted to see, I don't know that I was ever going to see that in theaters. If it just goes straight to Netflix, man, that's an insta watch for me right there. And then lastly, I just wanted to show this off. This is coming by way of Paul Thurrott. One last story just from our gadget block. Sorry, my live chat is just being real wonky, so I think that last link went through. But Microsoft put out a little video showing off some Windows 10 UI updates. So the era of old school live tiles seems to be over. We've got like a little collection of, like the history of Windows. And then I just wanted to get to this. We're going to be seeing completely new icons and as like for Microsoft Office, instead of the squares of colors, it's just going to be the a more streamlined icon for each individual service. Paint, that like paint swatch, the Microsoft Word, that square with the W. The weather just looks like a weather icon. And we're moving away from the old era of live tiles into something that's a little bit more fluid and a little bit more dynamic. So it's some good looking stuff. I think Microsoft is trying to adapt and make Windows more of a service. And some of these changes I think are going to be kind of cool, like really talking up accessibility, how you can operate Windows with their fancy Xbox controller, how you can change things like your mouse cursor and the size and the color so that it's better for different types of visual impairment. And then putting all of this together, this was the slide I really wanted to show you guys. Putting it all together because, oh, nope, go back. I tried to hit pause. And boom. No, go back. Dang it, YouTube. Intel, AMD, and ARM. I missed it again. What I showed there 3 times and failed to hit pause on exactly the right moment was Windows on anything that can be reasonably called a computer. I've been talking about using your smartphone for more aggressive use or displacing a laptop. Microsoft seems like they're trying to get Windows in shape for working on traditional x86 processors from Intel and AMD, and the same types of processors that also live in your phone or your tablet. I'm not surprised. Windows on ARM, I think, is going to be a very significant pivot. AMD and Intel, I think, are going to be caught by surprise when consumers have access to a couple ARM-powered platforms that sure, there are some compromises for certain types of programs, but the battery life gets better. They are thinner. They don't have fans. There are a lot of advantages that I think consumers will care about. So I think that's going to be I think that's going to be an important pivot. When they clean up their software for this, when Windows starts acknowledging mobility and accessibility issues, I think we could see Microsoft make an end run back into some idea of a smartphone again. You know, the Surface Duo is going to be running Android. Sure. I don't believe Microsoft's design is to always put out an Android phone. I think they're going to use the Duo as kind of a test market to see what do people really use, collect data on how they use products and services. And from there, if we have Windows on ARM, it will become much easier to build the basics of telephony into a regular foldable or modular or even just maybe a straight up candy bar form factor Windows 10 device. And if the UI can kind of morph to different screen sizes and different formats, I don't think it would be long. I'm thinking maybe 2 years, and then we'll see a proper Windows 10 on ARM, smaller form factor PC that could also replace your phone if you needed it to. Boing Bite, Microsoft Windows with the Linux kernel. Makes it think. From Def Burns 2, it'll update when Bill says it updates, gosh darn it. Oh, and from Heiki, I would be very happy if Windows streamlined legacy iconography and UX elements and the new Metro style elements into one cohesive style. They're all over the place right now. Windows 10 is kind of a mess as we're making this transition. Root Knight 5. Also, with how many Windows versions we have, it wouldn't be a stretch to have a home version with legacy elements stripped down and a pro version with the full instructions. I mean, that's kind of what we're already doing. Is it Windows 10S? And now there's going to be Windows 10X. And once we start looking at Windows on ARM, it's basically kind of a stripped or a streamlined version of Windows there too. So I want to spend a little time. I did tease it. And I had some extra thoughts. If any of you folks, gotta stretch, had questions or concerns, or you wanted to follow up some of the content that TK and I put out, talking about the LG V60, I have now spent a couple days with it. It showed up on a Thursday afternoon, and a full day using it on Friday. Then I did a live stream with TK, and I've been using it really heavily over the weekend. I'm blasting through the audio review. So I do an audio deep dive. Those are Patreon exclusive videos, but I'm hoping to have that out for tomorrow morning. So tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning, to have the audio where we do speaker samples. I show all of my charts and my graphs on the headphone performance. We talk about the headphone situation. This phone does not, the T-Mobile, at least the T-Mobile version, does not ship with a pair of bullets, earbuds in the case, in the box. But there are some interesting pivots from LG in terms of the phone as a whole. You know, people can't stop whinging about things like the higher refresh rate display or the higher resolution displays. Audio has a few little quirks too. So this is a very different animal. This is a very different conversation. And TK and I both kind of alluded to this on TK's stream after a day of use, but especially over a weekend of use. I can't say it's a one-to-one replacement for a V50. This feels like a restart. It feels like a soft reboot of the V series line, if you'll pardon a bad movie analogy. I like the direction this is heading. I still have to copy Josh Vergara. I still have a few concerns, but my concerns still largely fall on LG marketing properly communicating who this phone might be for. I don't give global recommendations. I do not believe, I have never believed, and I probably never will believe, there is one acceptable general fit computing solution for most people. I think that's pants on head stupid to rank gadgets as if there's some kind of winner. I do not believe in winners and losers in the market. But what the V60 is doing makes this a slightly different recommendation from where we were with the V50. In good ways and in bad ways. Again, it's always a balance of pros and cons, of perks to compromises. It's not a clear, this phone better, this phone good, I saw the spec sheet, this the phone I buy. We need to kind of live with it, and then we also need to figure out where some of the compromise points or the pain points might be. I gotta say, the screens have not been as much of a pain point as I thought they might have been. I'm a resolution snob. I absolutely adore ridiculous experiment phones like the Xperia 1. A UHD OLED on a phone. That is a beautiful display. But the daily driver usage on the V60 hasn't held me back. I do believe I am that screen snob where I'm looking at the display and I try and set my pixel pitch, my font to the absolute smallest size. I swear I can see some differences in clarity between this and like a V50 set to the same, or like a Pixel 4, the Pixel 4 XL set to the absolute smallest font size. But I don't find myself on such a big phone using it at the same distance as I would a smaller device, even a slightly smaller phone like the V50. So my initial concerns seem to be weathering well. I'm not saying someone should just ignore that it doesn't have a high refresh rate display, but what I would ask of this phone is different than what I would ask of a phone that can do 90 hertz or 120 hertz. I'm looking at something that is beastly more flexible, much better for multitasking, and just the fact that I can go into a control surface. Here, let me fire up the little ARPG game that I've been playing. So let me, come on, start the gamepad. And this is Enema, The Reign of Darkness. Terrible title. But it's a good time waster. Not quite as good as like a Path of Exile. But, Path of Exile right now is totally pooping the bed. I don't know if you've tried to play that game recently, but like I'm on good hardware, RTX 2080. I'm getting like 20 frames per second, and it goes like 20 frames per second, 0, 20 frames per second, 0. And I can't follow all of the threads for tech support on what's supposed to fix that. Well, if you disable this and then you enable this, and then you change your flux capacitor settings, you'll get 30 frames per second. You're like, that's ridiculous. So I've been playing a lot of Enema on my phone instead. Just a little dungeon looter. This game does not have support for hardware controllers. So for as much as I love my Steel series, and this Steel series gets a lot of action with mobile games. I love playing games on this controller. Enema does not support a hardware controller. So the best way to play this game is on a G8X or a V60, and you can map on the second screen all of the buttons to what's on the display. So this is a really sloppy collection of buttons over here, but then I can also place the buttons where they're the most ergonomic for me to hold the phone. I can keep a good grip on it. I've been playing a ton of this game. So someone Boeing Byte was asking, how's the battery life so far? And my battery life has been kind of mediocre, because I've been doing a lot of this. I'm running 2 displays to play this game with all of the graphics set to high, and the audio is pretty good. So I do have the dual speakers running on the V60, or I'm plugging in a headphone jack, and that, again, it's the best headphone jack on any phone, period. As it's powering my DT770s, I'm sure that's taken just a little bit more juice than if I were, using some other type of solution there. So I spent a good chunk of Sunday just jamming on this because this was awesome. I can't tell you, just the frame rate stays pegged at 60 frames per second. This game can stumble. I was playing this game on a OnePlus 7T primarily before the 865 Snapdragons came out. And on my OnePlus 7T, there are a bunch of dungeons. You do little side dungeon runs, and when there are a ton of enemies on the screen and there's a lot of loot floating around, each one of those is sort of a separately rendered item. So you have to fight monsters, the projectiles from those monsters, and then the loot that they drop is all rendered, as separate little bits. The 7T could chug. It would drop. Like I would die and then not know what killed me just because there would be a hard lock or a hard stumble, and then the frame rate would catch up, but I'd be dead. Has not happened on the V60. I don't get 90 hertz, but I am pegged at 60 frames per second and the game does not drop. Like it's great. I love it. And that I can play the game with a much better control than throwing my thumbs directly onto the game to play the game. So stuff like that has been huge, but it has kind of messed up my normal battery testing. I am not sure how to test the battery. I would love to hear suggestions from folks in the live chat here. What is a fair test to test the battery on a dual screen device? I don't run a lot of battery benchmarking. I only get loose estimates of how I use the phone throughout my day. How I normally use my phones has completely been impacted by the situation. And the only, sort of controlled test that I do is streaming HD video over Wi-Fi. But if I stream video over Wi-Fi on a dual screen device, that means I should probably also have something else up on the other screen. Like, there's so much of this phone that I use it with both screens active. So do I put an app on the second screen? Like maybe I put my Discord server up and I stream a video, but that's more processor intensive than just having the second screen on. I'm really struggling. Like, I'm not sure what to do to properly benchmark this battery in a way that's fair to the way that I benched other phones. When it's just used on its own, like just without the second screen case, the battery's insane. It's great. That's huge. But running both screens together, yeah, you take a hit. From Ronio266, how is the audio? LG was the champ. LG continues to be the champ. I have no problems just saying that. I mean, that's the spoiler for my audio deep dive. It's great. It's really good. It's the only smartphone that's going to properly power high impedance headphones. I'm not seeing any data to suggest they've cheaped out on the DAC. The DAC still posts numbers that are scientifically improved to a state where I'm not even sure dogs could hear these improvements, but they still keep getting better. And then for the audio deep dive, I'm going to have the actual charts and graphs so you can see some of the numbers that I'm seeing, because this is going to be the first audio review that I produced with my new recording interface. And I think I'm getting a better glimpse of what some of the more granular differences are. So, you've got the Qualcomm DAC, you've got the ESS DAC, then you've got the low impedance amp, you've got the high impedance amp. And I think I'm able to see, and consistently, I think I'm able to see clearer what some of the differences are moving from different playback source to state to state to state. So I'm really excited. The script that I've written for my audio deep dive is one of the longest that I've ever written, because I'm able to go back in and kind of re-explain some of the things that I see when I'm measuring this content and when I'm measuring this performance. Let's see. Matt Tyler, does the V60 feel good in the hand? I mean, it feels pretty good in the hand. It feels like the phone was built for a primate, like sort of an evolved primate with like an opposable thumb. it's like the phone isn't made out of razor blades or rusty rebar. So you can hold it, and you can hold it with like fingers and a thumb. You don't have to have like a prosthetic robot hand to hold the phone. So it feels pretty good. Feels pretty good in the hand. From Black Nego 743, this has never been truer, and I'm getting real frustrated with some of the conversations that I'm seeing about these premium phones. The average consumer can be satisfied with a Samsung Galaxy A51, but they're all going to stem for the S20 Ultra anyways. That's actually not true. What we see, mid-ranger phones are grossly outselling premium phones, significantly outselling more popular devices. For 2019, Apple's top-selling phones were the XR and the 11. The iPhone 8 Plus outsold the iPhone 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max. The iPhone 8 Plus outsold the iPhone 11 Pro and the iPhone 11 Pro Max, especially over the holidays. Like the holiday activations, I don't think the iPhone 11 Pro even ranked in the top 10 of iPhones sold by Apple. I think the iPhone 11 Pro Max was like 6th place. So we like making videos about expensive gadgets because that's titillating, but that is not the reality of what average consumers are going through. So this is in part kind of a commentary. Someone asked me much earlier. Someone asked me much earlier in the stream if I'd seen Danny Winget's video. It's a great look at performance between a V60 and a Galaxy S20. But this is where I am increasingly disagreeing with the premise that we take $1,000 phones, $800 and above, and these are devices. I mean, like with the case and on T-Mobile, if you buy it full retail, this phone is going to be $950 with the dual screen case. A Galaxy S20 is going to be $999. I very much disagree with the premise that, well, I'm only going to test in full auto HDR with the computer doing all of the processing choices for me, because that's how average people are going to use these phones. I don't mean to pick on just Danny, because what Danny did was a really in-depth and incisive analysis of two different phones. The content of that video, I think, is great. I disagree with the premise. I disagree that the premise of a comparison like that should be using the phone at a bare minimum level, which is easily satisfied by a $400 or cheaper device. He is shooting content in a way where someone picking up a Pixel 3a would probably be happier with most of the shots in those similar test conditions from the Pixel 3a. So I feel we as gadget reviewers have a responsibility, and we should be pivoting towards properly categorizing what these devices are capable of. If you pick up a Galaxy S20 and you pick up an LG V60, they are different camera systems. You would not shoot on a Sony Alpha in exactly the same way that you would shoot on a Canon 5D. Canon's autofocus performance, white balance, color science, all of those things are a little bit different, and you adapt to Canon's system to get the best results out of a Canon product. And I feel one of the flaws of Danny's test setup is I feel like he's more familiar with Samsung. He has better expectations on how to get better quality content out of a Samsung, and then he's shooting on the LG in the same way that he's shooting on the Samsung. And LG is asking slightly different considerations from you, and I don't think it would be difficult to shoot better quality content on the V60, especially given some of the things that he has concerns about. So, he's very interested in color science. Should this be BT 2020 or should it be Rec 709? Where are consumers going to be looking at this? What's the color science? What's the temperature? What are these details? But then you'll go and look at Samsung photos, and they're very contrasty and oversaturated from his video, in my opinion. And I like the look of the LG's slightly flatter. I mean, it's a little bit warmer, actually. I think Samsung's color science leans a little cooler than LG's. But LG isn't baking in as much sharpening, structure, and saturation. So the Samsung shots look more pleasing because of all of this extra eye candy, but so often to me that looks like unicorn vomit. And if I need to touch up an LG photo, I can, but most of the time I really like the look of the slightly more natural images coming out of the V60. But then that flips. And when he starts talking about video, he's very concerned about the V60 in full auto, making videos look brighter and more saturated and adding all of this color in. And I like the flatter look of the Samsung because Rec 709 BT 2020 average consumers are really concerned about the color profile, the color gamut of their videos. So again, it's not that I think he's consciously showing a bias, but I think he is unconsciously playing to his strengths, where he is more familiar, he is more comfortable, he's more familiar with the Samsung system, and that is leading to him getting better content out of the Samsung system, and then he's rationalizing that comparison on the back end. So that would be my take on Danny's video. I would still highly recommend watching it because Danny is such a talented cinematographer. He is super knowledgeable about these nuts and bolts, and I really wish he would just turn $1,000 phone commentary into pro level commentary. You want to talk about color science, and you want to dig deep, and you want to look at editing, 8K video, 4K 60 frame per second video, HDR with software stabilization. This is cinema grade gear that we're starting to pack into phones. And I'd rather see Danny just go balls to the wall, not hide behind this conceit that, oh, I'm doing it for the average consumer out there who's really excited to be paying $50 a month for 30 months to own one of these premium phones, even though that's not really the reality of what a lot of consumers are going through these days. So that's my take on it. I've shot limited samples on the V60. I can't show a lot of them because I've just been doing a ton of videos of Lex, and I don't share photos or videos of Lex where she's identifiable on social media. But the cameras are nicely improved. I'm not feeling like there's any significant compromise to losing the telephoto sensor. I've never been a big fan of the telephoto sensor. The video quality is astounding. I need to play around a little bit more with the audio, some of those audio fun modes. TK really went nuts. Check out his commentary on like the audio bokeh mode and the 3D immersive sound setting that got cut from our pre-release units. There's just a lot to like. Excuse me. And just, again, we don't have a 90 hertz refresh rate display. But what LG is doing when you fire up, hold on, let me see if I can even show this on camera. I don't know how well it's going to work. Oh, it's not going to work at all while I've got a game playing. So let's turn that off first. This phone pegs that 60 hertz refresh rate as soon as you fire up the camera. Even though it's not a 90 hertz refresh rate display, it is one of the most fluid viewfinders, and it's going to be kind of wonky here in lower light, but in bright, it's not going to work me showing this through a YouTube video. I'm going to have to take this outside and shoot some video of it at high frame rate, because it is just hyper fluid. Again, this phone seems to realize its limitations, but then maximizes the performance up to the limits of those limitations. I mean, like when you shoot that 60 frame per second video, it just looks eerily fluid when you watch it back on the screen. Sorry, I know I kind of rambled on there for a bit. Let me kind of just go back through some of the comments here if there are any other questions. From Dave Burns, the top tier phones are made and designed for influencers because they probably use the feature set the most. But most people using those super expensive phones aren't even stressing their true capabilities. And now is the right time for those of us in these types of conversations to make sure our family and friends are really getting their money's worth. And not just like, oh, well, maybe you should have bought a cheaper phone. You bought the wrong phone. You bought an expensive phone? Have you tried doing this with it? Have you shot video with it? Have you tried editing video on your phone? You can totally do it. It's so easy. Let me show you. Share some of that excitement, some of that passion. I'm doing these video diaries for my daughter. I mean, we are in crazy unprecedented times, and I want her to be able to come back to this media and that, like, you know, this was a challenge, and our family handled some parts of the challenge well and didn't handle other parts of the challenge as well. I think we're all going through similar things, but she's still learning how to ride a bike, and we're taking her on some pretty obscure nature hikes so that we can avoid other people. And we're you know, she can't do soccer lessons at her preschool, so we're teaching her soccer out on a grassy field, and her footwork's getting pretty good, and I'm going to document that, and I'm going to set it to music. Like when we did her first haircut, you know, the soundtrack for her first haircut was Janelle Monáe. You know, like I want her to have this stuff, and I want her to be able to see it, and I want her to be able to see it in the highest possible quality that we could capture it in. From Dave Burns again, I'm not a professional photographer, but I still use Pro Mode all the time. I know that I can pull out of a sensor after I've played with it for a while. It takes a while to play with that, to get that feeling for it. Let me see some of these other comments here. TK Bay, anyone asking, TK Bay asking a very important question here because I'm not going to do it. Should I do an ASMR video with the LG V60? Any thoughts? So someone tell TK if he should do an ASMR because I can't handle ASMR. It's terrible. From Ronald Collins on the V50. You talk about another monster phone from last year. I did a 240 frame per second 1080p shot on my LG V50 last night. The slow motion on LG phones is so much fun to play with. You go into Pro Mode, you turn on 240 frames per second, you peg the bit rate at the highest possible quality, and then you can still control shutter speed, manual focus. So like I put out a video and it was mostly on Patreon, but I think you can still catch it. It was just unlisted on my personal YouTube. Little explosions of water drops shot at 240 frames per second. And the best way to get that was to set the focus manually because a phone won't autofocus on something like water drops. It's just too chaotic a scene. But you can preset the focus, set it to a certain distance, hit record, and then I'm just getting drenched in the middle of some rain, but I'm capturing these amazing raindrop explosions kind of popping off the asphalt outside of our new place. You know, tools like that, of course I'm not going to do that a lot, but consumers might want to know there's a solution for you to control your super high frame rate slow motion video. Can't do it on an iPhone. I don't believe you can currently do it on a Samsung. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if the S20 supports manual focus, shutter speed, and exposure controls for 240 frame per second 1080p, but it's awesome. And again, it's something that the V60 just effortlessly provides. Okay, so Mr. Pulp Fiction, highest possible quality recording of your daughter means 8K. I am not shooting a lot of 8K. For me, especially keeping after a toddler, well, she's not really a toddler anymore. She's 4.5. Keeping after a 4-year-old on a push bike and, you know, a really active kid, you know, when I want to capture a memory, it's that I really want to capture the fluidity of that as well. So I typically shoot everything 4K 60. I feel like that's the better compromise of maintaining the action of a moment with a really high resolution. 4K video is still very high resolution video. But that to me, I think is a better way of preserving it. That way, I also have the flexibility to play with time a little bit. There's not much you can do. Well, you can compress time. Leaf blowers! The leaf blowers are here. They were just a little late, people. I know that we were very concerned whether or not they would show up. Right outside my window, just destroying my train of thought as the train derails. When you're shooting 24 frames per second, I know people like to boast their cinematic look. I don't find that there's anything. I don't like the look of cinematic video captured from phones with a lower frame rate when I'm trying to capture family memories. Instead, I'd rather have something that's more sort of newsy or editorial, something that's a little twitchier, a little edgier. But then when I shoot 60 frames per second, I can speed that video up just as easily, or I can stretch it out. So if I render that 4K video at 60 frames per second down to a 30 frame per second timeline, it's like I get an automatic half speed slow motion, which is great. It's so much fun to play with. So I typically peg the highest bit rate I can for 4K 60. From Three-Legged Couch. Is it a good time to plug JC's smartphone photography for noobs? I'm one of those noobs. I don't have a $1,000 phone, of course. I did write a book on smartphone photography, which you can catch on Amazon, which is called Smartphone Photography for Noobs. Root Night, any additional audio features in the DAC settings compared to previous models? I would say refinements to the features that have already been there, but there are also a couple omissions from some of our previous LG Super Quad DAC devices. The V60 might be streamlining a few of the more advanced features that we've had before, and I'm going to save that. That's my big tease, the big controversy, going from a V50 to a V60. From Pakistan, I wondered if there was an update from the last time about a year ago. I've read the book. I've looked at the book, lighthearted and easy to read. Definitely recommend. I'm writing up my notes for revision of the book. I haven't finished it. One of the things I was actually waiting for was getting some of the newer phones out this year to talk about things like to update on the camera apps. If you go through my book now, Windows Phone is still a third of the section. I need to just bite the bullet and revise. So like Apple, we've seen some improvements to the UI, and Android, there are so many different kinds of Android camera apps, and I want to do a better job of delineating some of those features between different manufacturers. But I also wanted to wait for this year to talk about larger camera sensors and things like time of flight sensors. I'm going to be rewriting a whole passage on camera hardware to talk about some of the differences that we've seen to better mimic standalone cameras. So that update will probably be out. Actually, if I'm being honest in what I can actually accomplish, that update will probably be out later in the summer. But there will be a refresh. I try to do one major refresh of the book every year. So again, it's an Amazon Kindle. It's the only platform to buy it on. There's still no way for me to get the book on Google Play Books. They shut that down years ago and never opened it back up as far as I know. But it does get a yearly refresh. So I try to keep the book somewhat current for what's going on in photography. Mr. Pulp Fiction, maybe next year's Snapdragon 875 will support 8K recording with 60 frames. And even if it does, I would maybe opt for 4K at 120 frames per second. But folks, it's a monster phone. It is a perfectly competitive premium option. The V60 has been rocking my socks. And it's been rocking my socks like literally for its ability to deliver high quality multimedia, some of the best audio you can achieve, even for a few omissions for some of you hardcore audiophiles. I still have concerns over the size. Again, time and time again, what I'm going to keep coming back to is Oh, I don't think my V50 is on. Yeah, it's not booted up. But it's a big boy. It's a big phone. It is a chunk. Let me try and line those up so that you can kind of see how much. So this is the V50. The V50 was not a small device, and the V60 is demonstrably larger. I'm going to kind of go to the back case so there's a little less reflection and glare. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm drinking a lot of water, but that's also, I'm getting those burps. Super gross. So apologies to those of you listening to the audio version of this podcast right now, because you cannot see the differences between the V50 and the V60. The V50 is a big phone. The V60 is bigger. Now, this is super cool, and it's really handy for things like two-handed gaming. Really nice. Very well balanced. Ergonomic. The case is more grippable. Very nice considerations. But as that, let me pick up a portrait mode device screen. It's big. It's big. Where this has affected me the most, I wake up in the morning, I check, messages, if I've gotten any text messages or emails. Holding that phone in bed, not the nicest ergonomic consideration. It's never going to be that quick, nimble, knife fighter of a phone. Not like, some of my favorite Mighty Mouse phones, which you could easily use with like one of my stumpy thumbs. The V60 is always going to be a managed pocket supercomputer that requires a bit more attention and probably both of your hands, no matter what you're trying to do on it. Root Knight 5, does it support HDMI output? It absolutely does, but not with the screen case on. It can only support one extra display at a time. Pata, I wake up in the morning feeling like P. Diddy. So I want to wrap this stream up. It's about time that we end this, but I did have a couple freebies and a couple recommendations for you fine folks out there. We're all in this together. We can all be good resources and share cool stuff to help us take some of the edge off. Entertainment, music, movies, video games. So major resources for me. As I'm going through my week, things that I've been checking out. First of all, bite the bullet, just do it, suck it up. I know it's obnoxious having another game launcher on your PC, but make sure you're keeping track of Epic Games. The Epic Games Store does a free game or sometimes multiple free games every week. So through March 26th, the free games at Epic right now are Watch Dogs and the Stanley Parable. If you have not played either of those games, go get them for free. They are great games. Just go do it. I don't even understand why we're not all automatically just jumping on this. Build up a library. Every week they're going to put out a free game. Go snag it, have some fun, blow off some steam. Watch Dogs, Stanley Parable. Those are both great. Moving right along, I would also highly recommend checking out, I lost the link. Dang it. There are 2 free games out on Good Old Games. Let me see if I can pull up my email here real quick. Yes. Okay. So I'm just going to open these up in individual links. Okay. Good Old Games, GOG.com. They have a pair of free games out right now. Sang Freud, Tales of Werewolves. Combining action and strategy in a unique way, Sang Freud, Tales of Werewolves transports you into an epic folklore co-written with best-selling Canadian author Brian Perrault, who also wrote Amos Dragon and Warwolf, in which 2 feuding brothers will have to put aside their differences to save their sister, who is pursued by the devil himself. And then also the game Kane. In the grim return to the stasis universe, expectant protagonist Hadley wakes up in a facility. Where is she? Why is she there? And why do they want her baby? Help panicked and anxious Hadley find her feet and brave stomach-churning situations to break free by solving puzzles in this free horror adventure game, Kane. Rated R, probably. I don't know. 2 free games. Good old games. Probably going to be up for the next couple days. And I would be remiss in sharing, in not sharing. Well, how do you say that? I would be remiss if I didn't share. Through today, through this evening, Tomb Raider. The 2013 release of Tomb Raider is still free on Steam. You can just drop that immediately into your Steam library. Great adventure game. It's Tomb Raider, and then, what is it? Tomb Raider, the Osiris. What was the Osiris? Oh, there it is. The Temple of Osiris, which I think came out in 2014. Yeah, I mean, it's not as super fancy or as graphics packed or as RTXified, ray traced as the more recent Tomb Raider game. Still a fun adventure game. It's great. Free. You cannot be free. If this game is just not in your library automatically, I think you're doing it wrong. But then we should also be making sure that we share this stuff. Tomb Raider will expire. If you're listening to this podcast after today, after the day I record it, unfortunately, you've probably missed out on Tomb Raider. Sorry. I just saw Three-Legged Couch. Is that Peter Cullen? There is no way anyone mistook my voice for the delicious baritone of Mr. Peter Cullen, more commonly known as Optimus Prime. But I will love you forever for making that comparison between me and Peter Cullen. So yes, go get some free games. And then I also just want to leave this off for here in the United States, and I'm not sure what the situation is like in other countries, but don't ignore some of the resources that we've created in our communities to help distribute content. I have an LA Public Library card. It was one of our favorite weekend trips was to take Lex to the library and let her pick out some new books. There are so many services available to you if you have a library account so that you can get free ebooks, listen to free music, watch free movies. So on the LA Public Library website, you can use apps like Hoopla or Overdrive to get free ebooks. There are circulations for New York Times, for magazines, for newspapers, online learning classes that can help you along with Duolingo or Khan Academy. Again, resources that our tax dollars have helped contribute to building, and you can access them for free. And so one of the ones that I literally just found out about 2 days ago is Kanopy. And Kanopy is a video streaming service, but they have free video streaming credits for LA Public Library card holders. So if you have a public library account, you can go to Kanopy.com and you can stream 9 free movies and you can watch unlimited kids content. And it's a funky collection of films. The layout of their website is hot garbage, but 9 free movie rentals for things that you might not have seen. An amazing collection of documentaries, some really fun out there films. They've got some staff picks. It's all very indie, Under the Skin. If you've seen that Scarlett Johansson movie, I think it's also on Netflix. But if you don't want to pay for Netflix, you can watch it on Kanopy for free with the library card. Really out there, sort of meta film. But I want to scroll down here because I'm actually kind of excited to chew through this. Where is it? Art House favorites, New York Times favorites. They've got a whole section of Criterion Collection. Miss Julie, Tokyo Story, Summertime, Wages of Fear, Pygmalion, Rashomon. Let me scroll through some of these. Ikaru, The 400 Blows. I mean, I've seen a lot of these films. I don't have them, but I can stream them for free off of Kanopy. 8.5, Breathless. Jean-Luc Godard, Breathless. It's a great movie. Oh, it's such a good movie. The Great Dictator. You want some Charlie Chaplin in there. There are so many resources that we've got that, again, this could be something that totally takes the sting out of someone's weekend. Not having to worry about a movie rental or trying to find some way of entertaining their kids, or just breaking up, maybe it's a, boyfriend and girlfriend and Netflix and chill is getting a bit too expensive. Get a library card. It's here. You can do it. It's really good times. From Tech Love and Mama, if you search for audiobooks on YouTube, hundreds of free ones out there. Root Knight 5. I just snatched Tomb Raider. I was interested in trying the saga out someday. Now is the right time to give the Tomb Raider saga a chance. Gary the Fireman. I just saw this one too. If you're an aspiring music producer, Native Instruments has gigs of free software. I downloaded, but I haven't tried yet. That ends March 31st. Native Instruments, it's not you just download it and install it. You do have to set up an account, but they've opened up their trove of different synthesizers and plugins and editing tools. Go get it for free. So good. So good. So we need to be on the lookout for this stuff. There are some companies doing some great outreach. There are some movie producers doing some interesting moves and how we can shake up distribution. Game developers and game distribution companies finding ways to get good content out there. This is going to be an interesting time to see how we make these adjustments for picking up content and media. But finding a resource like this, like Kanopy, 9 free movies a month, sure. And there's some good stuff in here. I'm stoked. I'm really excited. PBS just recently posted beautiful HD versions of Ken Burns' Baseball. 9 2-hour documentary episodes on the history of baseball. You can stream it from PBS websites. If you need to kill some time, 18 hours of baseball documentary, since we don't have actual baseball, pretty good way to kill some time. And again, the transfer is gorgeous. I mean, it's a really high quality stream, provided we're not getting throttled for high quality video. So wonderful resources out here, not just for us to collect for ourselves. Spread the word. Make sure your family and friends know this. If we have to tighten our belts and we have to drop a streaming service or two, you're not going to be living in a bunker devoid of any other content. You're not going to be wanting for other entertainment resources. We can fill those gaps. I talked about it last week. The Metropolitan Opera put out a week of operas. La Boheme, the La Boheme they put out was gorgeous and a wonderful stream. It was just fantastic. That website got nuked. The Met Opera website just got hammered into oblivion. But you got into a queue and you would eventually get to stream your opera and you could watch an opera. You know, we can make it through this. We can do this. And we can do this with some reasonably high quality entertainment. So I hope that by spreading the word on these resources, we can make everyone's lives a little easier, a little more comfortable. Give your family and friends a call. We've been doing a lot of group chats and group calls and video calls and stuff like that. And every time we're in one of these video calls, someone brings up something like, oh yeah, and don't forget about your library card. Of course. I don't have to go and buy a bunch of books. You know, that is some weight off my mind right there. I still be able to keep up with some reading, and it's not going to hit my family's finances too hard. So I just want to one last through here. Gary the Fireman, Ken Burns is the man. Ken Burns' Baseball is so beautiful. I mean, like it's just this work of art of a documentary. I've watched it several times in its entirety, but getting to stream it again, just like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna jump on that. So, folks, we ran a lot long. Thank you so much for jumping in on this conversation. There's some there's definitely some stressful news happening out there due to the situation, but I'm continuously encouraged by the quality of conversations that we're having today. This is this podcast for me has always been a replenishing resource just to find some goodwill in our community, in our tech community, finding some other like-minded people that that enjoy talking about this stuff and having broader conversations. While there are some things that I feel we need to keep our eye on, some political issues, some government issues, I'm really happy to see in the circles that I keep, my friends, my family, these are the people that have been rising to the occasion, looking out for their neighbors and being good tech citizens. So it's getting rough out there. This is my plea. Keep up the good work. You are making a difference. We are making a difference. And it's through these conversations that will be those resources on the other end of this, that will have the trust of our family and friends, that will be a voice of reason for some of these scary times, and just making sure that everyone is connected, everyone is safe, everyone is able to communicate and entertained and getting the most bang for their gadget buck. That's a valuable resource. We have a superpower today as everyone is pivoting to work from home, trying to set up home offices, never having taxed their home networking gear like they have before. Maybe there's only one family computer and they also have to find a way to entertain kids or get schoolwork done. We've got the answers. We do. So let's make sure we're sharing. Let's make sure we're sharing our knowledge, because we're going to help a lot of people when we do. Folks, thank you so much for an amazing live stream. As always, the conversations here are replenishing for me. I hope they're engaging for you. I want you to have an amazing week with your technology. We're using it like we've never used it before. And hopefully it lives up. Hopefully it stands up to this increased scrutiny and increased use. So I want you to have an amazing week with your technology. I want you to do awesome with your tech. I want you to be awesome with your tech. And I'll catch you back here next week on another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show. Be well. Take care. Keep your heads down. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. I'll catch you back here next week. I love y'all.